Hey everyone, Guppy Girl here, and welcome to Planting Edition, where I'm going to take a whole bunch of stem plants and smash them into this 10-gallon tank and somehow make it all fit. Now you're probably asking yourself, why a 10-gallon tank? Well, it's because it's the only dirted tank I have currently available, and I do a lot of guppy breeding, so I have a bunch of smaller tanks for separating fry and juveniles and adults later on. So basically, I work with 10-gallon tanks or around that size. I had just planted this whole tank last week with my tiny little ground cover of hydrocotyl tripartita and a bunch of other little plants, but unfortunately I had to uproot all of these plants to make room for the new batch of stem plants that I bought from a guy off Facebook. I am not a plant expert, but I do have some tidbits that you guys might find helpful. In this example, you can see here at the node where the leaves are coming out, there is a new bud forming. This bud will eventually form its own stem. Now this is really important information to keep in mind when working with stem plants, because at every node where the leaves are coming out, you can get a formation of a new stem and the possibility of roots. One thing I like to do with stem plants is I like to peel back the leaves that are going to end up in the substrate, because eventually these leaves are just going to die off and rot, which won't be any help to the plant. So instead I just gently peel them off, and as long as the leaf node is still intact and not damaged, the plant will be able to sprout roots from this area. Unfortunately, I had to uproot all of my little ground cover plants that I planted last week because I needed room in the tank for these new plants. Now usually with new plants I like to let them sit in a bucket of water for a few days, but because most of these were needle-shaped leaved plants and plants that were red, I wanted to get them in the ground as soon as possible. From my experience, I have found that these type of plants don't tend to hold up very well if they aren't planted right away. This plant lost all of its leaves during shipping, but that doesn't mean it's not alive. The stem is still firm and green, so the stem is still alive and has the possibility to send more roots down. But roots will only form at the nodes when it's covered in substrate. So that's why I lay the stems horizontally into the substrate to help signal to the plant that it's in substrate and can start putting roots down. In this example, this plant has lost most of the leaves. It still has some, but it's pretty sparse on the stem. Fortunately for me, the plant has already sent out a new stem, so I'm just cutting off the old stem above and below the node and keeping this little portion. Roots will eventually form when in the substrate. This stem is dying on the lower half. It's brown color and it's a little squishy to the touch, which means it's already starting to degrade and die. So I cut off the dead portion and replant the live bit. One little discovery I made when I planted the tank last week was that I found one single leaf of Bacopa, and this one leaf had enough, node on it to create a little stem and to send out a root. For the substrate of the tank, it's fluval stratum on the first ½ inch and then another ½ inch of pool filter sand on top. Lighting is a really cheap LED shop light. I found them at Costco and I really like them because you can kind of daisy chain them together, so less outlets. And I keep the lights on for 11.5 hours every day. No fancy aquarium lights or anything like that. Even though I have done my fair share of planting and aquascaping, even I have problems planting some of these plants. So enjoy all of my failures.